The most important financial decision you'll ever make in your entire life is whether you own real estate or not. As of 2024, the average American has $304,000 of equity in their home, which by the way is greater than the average American's 401k or IRA retirement balance. And there's been a lot of intrepidation about the game of real estate because for the last couple of years, rates have been high and people have been basically waiting and watching what's gonna happen. But with rates coming down, we have potentiality for a really big 2025. In today's video, I'm gonna share my predictions for what's gonna go down in real estate in 2025 so you can be prepared and make sure you do not get left behind. Now in today's video, I'm gonna talk about my experience over the last 2 decades on over $2 billion transacted in the real estate game. I've been a part of thousands of investment property purchases, and today I wanna share with you what I think is gonna happen in the market this coming year and what you need to do to be prepared for it. Let's start with the good news. 2025 may be positioned to have an incredible outlook compared to 2024 or 2023 due to improving mortgage rates and inventory levels. There's a lot of uncertainty in the air and people are wondering, Kris, what's gonna happen? And so today I wanna share with you what the reports are saying, but then also what I think is going to happen. I'll start by sharing that between rising prices, slowing construction, and the presidential election, what does it mean for the real estate landscape in 2025? Well, I think it's going to be crazy. Let's not forget where we've come from. After the 2008 financial crisis, we saw rates drop really, really low because there's a bunch of real estate that went back to the banks because they had overbuilt. And so basically we had a huge bust of real estate. The bubble burst and it was bad for a number of years and we didn't build real estate. Then we spent a decade trying to catch up on inventory by basically building as much real estate as we possibly could. And we had really, really low interest rates during that time, like 3 and 4 and 5%. But in the last 2 years, especially when you look at the height of October 2023, we've had interest rates that have basically hung out around that 8% range. And for most people, with the price of real estate having gone up, $100,000, and then rates also going up, it's meant that real estate has been very unaffordable. And it means that a lot of people have been basically sitting on their thumbs, waiting for those rates to come down or for the prices to come down so they can start transacting real estate again. So here's what's interesting. Rates have come down now closer to the 6% range, and we're looking at the possibility of 2 more rate drops before the end of the year. And we're now finally getting into that 5% range. And what that means for the average American is that when we buy real estate that had gone up over $100,000 in value, with rates not coming down, it just was too expensive to buy a home. But where rates are now starting to settle and come down, we're starting to see movement in the market, especially as you approach the low 5%, because technically at the price of real estate today, once we hit 5.25%, guess what that means? It's now cheaper to own real estate than it is to rent. So the renter market is going to be converging upon the real estate market, basically saying we've waited a couple of years, rates have come down, it's time for us to actually buy a home. Now, here's what's interesting about this. For someone buying a primary residence, like this is a home for me and my family, rate conscious is actually supreme. We need those rates to come down to make real estate affordable again. But if you're a real estate investor, the rates haven't really mattered much. Like whether I have an 8% rate or a 5 or a 6% rate, all that really does is affects the cash flow. But when I'm buying real estate, I'm looking for growth. Like for example, in the last decade, on 2,000 rentals, my average ROI is around 60%. So how much does rate of 8 versus 6% really impact that 60%? Maybe by 1%. Like literally, instead of making 60% of my money, I might make 59% of my money, which means for an investor, this rate consciousness actually doesn't matter a whole lot. Now, lower interest rates are going to unleash some of the pent-up demand for housing market in 2025, but ultimately, this is going to help keep mortgage rates above their ultra low rate that we had a few years before the pandemic and lower than their current levels. So bottom line is, now is actually a really smart time to be diving into the market. Why now? Because if you wait till the spring, I think that you're going to see the market rally. I think it's going to increase dramatically. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I was waiting for the rates to come down, but then the property appreciated $20, $30, $50, $80,000. And if that happens, it's just going to cancel itself out again. And then basically it's like, well, we have low rates, but guess what? The affordability just got crunched again because the market was on the move, meaning now's the time to buy real estate if you've been waiting. But Kris, what about that decade where rates were like sitting at 3 or 4%? Like, shouldn't I wait for rates to come down there? It's like, I don't know if we're ever going to see that again. Historically speaking, that was unprecedented. Just like historically speaking, we have a supply-demand shortage problem like we've never had before. So waiting for the rates to come down that low, I think that you're going to be waiting a really long time. If it's for investments, guess what? it doesn't really matter on the ROI, like I said. If it's for a primary residence, you can always do a refinance and say, hey, rates came down enough, and guess what? Now we're just gonna refinance into a lower payment and save maybe a couple $100 off the mortgage. All right, let's talk about housing inventory improvements, because the media is gonna talk a lot about this, but not a lot of people know how to really interpret the data. What we're talking about is the months of housing supply. That's the metric that they use, and it's how long it would take to see all the homes currently listed actually sell. And right now that number for September of 2024 is sitting at 4.3 month supply. That means that for all of the homes that are for sale in 4.3 months, they would basically be all gone. Now, this is still below the 5 to 6 month range for a balanced market. We normally have more homes in supply, but as of February, it was as low as 2.9 months. But this is a little bit of a misleading number. Why? Because they're just talking about how long does it take to sell what's available. They're not talking about the demand. Right now, there's a demand for at least 3.2 million homes in this country. And if we built them as fast as we could, I'm not sure we could supply them all in even 8 or 9 years, which means the likelihood of a market crash is actually really far out there. It's probably closer to like a decade away, which means we need a lot more houses to hit the market. We need builders to build a lot more houses. And if they don't do that well enough, that's what's gonna shoot the price of real estate up, which then in turn incentivizes a lot of people to say rates are down, let's actually list our house and cash out. But if we cash out, then we just have to buy a house at a higher price, and it's a little bit of a catch-22. So this really begs the question for 2025. Will home prices go down? There's a lot of people that are wondering, is there gonna be a crash? Is there gonna be a crunch? I'm gonna tell you right now, I do not predict house prices going down. I see them, if anything, not just flatlining, but actually going north, especially in popular regions where you don't have enough inventory. Think of it like the supply and demand issue. So there's a supply of homes currently available. There's not very many, but there's huge demand. And when the rates come down, that demand is gonna say, well, there's not many homes, let's bid them up. And so we're gonna see prices, especially in those areas. In fact, I'm betting on it because I invest in the top 5 markets out of the 324 markets that make up the United States. And in those markets, you basically have not enough homes, you have population growing like Central Florida or Memphis or Oklahoma or Jonesboro, Arkansas. These are markets where you have strong business formation. This is where companies are moving into these areas, and it's bringing a lot of jobs. You also have people saying that's a desirable area to live and it's affordable, and so they're moving there. So we've got migration on top of population patterns. You let all of those swim together, and then these become pockets in the country where prices have to shoot up, which as an investor, I'm counting on it because I'm buying real estate. And while I have 4 different ways of making money, one of those 4 is appreciation, and it tends to be the one that makes me the most money. Bottom line, real estate is gonna do really well in 2025. You wanna own more real estate, not less real estate, and you shouldn't be waiting because starting in the spring, we're gonna see some strong mobilization of the prices. If you wanna know what you can do in real estate, I got something cool for you. Today, I would like to offer you a free game plan. That means sit down with one of my coaches that has been trained by me and let me put me in your shoes and say, if I were you, what would I do to start buying very profitable real estate that was gonna make me loads of money? And if you've ever had the dream of financial freedom, real estate is a great way to get there. And you don't even necessarily need money to make it happen. So literally, if you're starting out like I did in my early 20s, where it's like, I don't got money, I don't got credit, and I don't got a game plan, I want you to click the link below and say, Kris, give me a free game plan. And you know what? I'll do it without any strings attached because I love helping people understand their options. And you have options for becoming a millionaire and even a multimillionaire in real estate only if you have the right game plan. Click the link below, request a free game plan, and let me hook you up and share with you what I would do if I were you to become a multimillionaire next. You still think there's gonna be a crash, right? Like you're just not convinced there won't be a crash. There's actually 7 different factors that are required to create a crash, and if you wanna know what those are, click right here and let me show you.